I've been thinking a little bit about the situation. Although all intelligence services are factional, there are genuine conflicts going on between the intelligence and security services of the British Isles and the Russian Federation. And indeed, I seem to have got myself caught up in international espionage. Indeed, it seems that Russian intelligence may be using me in some way. Indeed, I believe they're beaming at me also, utilizing networks of psychics operating in basements in a building quite near to the Kremlin. So quite interesting, these Russian remote viewers and ESP specialists are using me as part of an ongoing Soviet agenda, whereby via psychopolitical processes, the Soviet Union can conquer the United Kingdom. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, I believe they may be taking advantage of the information I am putting out regarding Wiltshire Police. And basically, I'm playing into an agenda without meaning to. Indeed, it's all very interesting to consider this. Indeed, the British intelligence services have also used psychics on me via networks operating out of basements beneath Thames House, i.e. the headquarters of the security services. MI5, so it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, both British intelligence and Russian intelligence are utilizing networks of psychics to attempt to invade and enter my mind, and therefore force an agenda whereby British people rise up against the police, which will suit Soviet interests. Indeed, it's all very interesting to consider this. Indeed, if this resulted in wiping out vast amounts of the populations of Devizes and Calm, I don't really care if I'm being used in an agenda by Soviet intelligence. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, I have my own personal interests in this matter, and I have my own personal vendetta against the Wiltshire populations of Calne and Devizes. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, it wouldn't bother me if Soviet intelligence sparked an uprising whereby 80% of Calne and 90% of Devizes were slaughtered. It wouldn't bother me at all. I wouldn't lose any sleep. However, I do not really appreciate being used in an agenda, though. This is the thing. I am operating for myself. I'm a mental patient. I may be an intelligence operative, but I'm not aligned to either British intelligence or Russian intelligence, no matter how much these two networks are fighting for control of my soul. Indeed, as I stated before, intelligence services are factional. There are various networks of British intelligence associated with the Cambridge Apostle Communist Network, who have been looking to recruit me as part of some sort of agenda whereby psychopolitically driven units of Soviet intelligence would basically begin to coordinate the affairs of the British Parliament. However, I have no interest of being caught up in that charade, so it's interesting indeed. The Soviet intelligence services, via networks of the Russian military intelligence capacity, i.e. the GRU, are attempting a complete takeover of the British Parliament to attempt to implement a psychopolitical state. Indeed, this is at odds with various Bavarian Illuminist networks, including networks of Anglo supremacists who wish to implement their Druidic religion. So it's interesting, there are Russian intelligence factions with a different agenda to the Bavarian Illuminist agenda. Indeed, it seems to have come down to various networks of psychopolitical driven agents. As I stated, everything is factional. There are many GRU networks on board with the Aryan faction, but there are other networks utilizing psychopolitics that wish to implement a Leninist system in the United Kingdom, i.e. a communist state. So it's all very interesting indeed. Various networks of British intelligence are attempting to resurrect the Masonic faith and implement a Gestapo police state, whereas various other networks operating via certain factions of hippies are attempting to create a Marxist-Leninist state in the United Kingdom. Indeed, both the Gestapo police state being erected by certain Bavarian Illuminists and the British police, and the psychopolitical Marxist-Leninist state attempting to be erected by Cambridge apostles and networks of British communists are totalitarian ideologies. But basically, everything works out the same, whereby the security services are fused with special branch to create a Ministry of State Security, i.e. a Stasi, that will operate for the good of the party. So it's all very interesting to note the fusion of totalitarian ideals that are taking shape. Indeed, 40% of the GRU are interconnected with national Bolshevik networks that interconnect with SVR chief Alexander Dugin. And these networks are attempting, via psychopolitical processes, to implement a one-party state in the United Kingdom that will be driven by the Soviet Union. Indeed, Troy Southgate's network, i.e. the National Anarchist movement, are torn between the British police state idea of Bavarian Illuminism and the Nazbol idea operated by Alexander Dugin. Now you have to consider what exactly is going to happen. Indeed, Russian intelligence are watching me with very intrigued eyes, trying to work out if I would ever go along with the program regarding the implementation of a Marxist-Leninist structure in the United Kingdom, which would be combined with a narco state operating synthetic drug distribution in the United Kingdom to pacify the population, somewhat similar to Aldous Huxley, i.e. the British intelligence operatives' Brave New World theories. I would most certainly not go along with this agenda. I am a lover of freedom, so any of these totalitarian networks that would attempt to woo me over to their cause are having a laugh, really. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, I believe a lot of spies are laughing at me anyway, because they know I can see through them, and therefore they are angry at themselves for allowing certain information into the public domain that I've been able to basically decipher. So they're laughing at me because they are ashamed of themselves. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, are the GRU networks and SVR networks interested in implementing a Marxist-Leninist state in the United Kingdom in any way connected to Bavarian Illuminism? They are, but they formed their own branch of Illuminism via KGB cells, secret covens, which is a different branch of Illuminism from that practiced by the German Masonic lodges. So it's interesting to consider this Russian faction is distinct from the German Masonic lodges and has its own interests. Indeed, what part does China play in terms of interconnectivity with these Russian lodges? Indeed, apparently China is actually more interconnected to the German Masonic lodges than it is to the KGB covens, which we shall now refer to as SMERSH networks. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, these SMERSH networks operate psychopolitical, procedural ideologies on the Russian masses and are particularly involved with the persecution and mistreatment of psychiatric patients. Indeed, I've explained that the GRU, via Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst factions within the GRU, i.e. the Dietrich and Kammler factions, are involved in the transportation and trafficking of up to 10,000 Russian mental patients every 4 years to the slaughterhouses beneath the butcher shops of Wiltshire. So it's very interesting to consider. Indeed, this is psychopolitics in action, driven by networks of KGB operatives, coordinated by Trudovics, apparently, which is interesting. The Trudovics are another network of the KGB, operative to control the Russian hierarchy by networks of peasant labor communes. So it's interesting how this fits in with Troy Southgate's national anarchist agenda. And Troy Southgate is for big government. He is not anti-government as he claims to be. Indeed, he is interconnected with the National Bolshevik network that is itself interconnected with Alexander Dugin's network, which all links up to an idea coordinated by these Trudovics within Russian intelligence that wish to implement a one-party Nazi ideal that is Marxist-Leninist. So it's Marxist-Leninist Nazism. So it's interesting, any state structure that would be erected in the United Kingdom would be a Nazi-style structure, whether it be British fascist or Trudovic Marxist-Leninist. So it's all very interesting. Both of these continuums are Nazi ideologies, operative for eugenicist ambitions and psycho-political driven agendas. So it's all very interesting to consider and analyze these networks. Indeed, the Trudovics have a headquarters in Moscow on an old cattle farm, interestingly located on the outskirts of the city. Indeed, there are crypts beneath this cattle farm. It's more of a cattle factory, really. There are crypts beneath it, wherein various computer hackers operate for the greater glory of the Soviet Union. These networks are parallel to psychic networks operating out of the Kremlin. They're attempting to steal my soul for the ambition of the Russian Federation. So it's all very interesting. I'm caught in a matrix coordinated by the intelligence services of 3 entities, i.e. British intelligence factions, coordinated by Grenville Lodge, Russian intelligence factions coordinated by Trudovics, and Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst factions, coordinated by the Cemetery Network, operating out of a crypt beneath Belsen concentration camp. So it's all very interesting. Indeed, the Cemetery Network, as well as having crypto hackers via technological means, also have networks of brain hackers operating out of several military bases across the United Kingdom. Indeed, Defence Industrial Security Command equivalent of the United Kingdom, i.e. the intelligence branch of the munitions makers, want to shut me down before I attempt to stop a war between Britain and the Soviet Union. Indeed, I do not know if that trajectory is actually in my interest. However, I would not want the war to occur personally, but actually following that trajectory as a research pattern isn't part of my agenda at all. Indeed, my main agenda is the destruction of devices police. And it's interesting to consider, I have described the interconnectivity in several videos between the devices police network and the Russian state, with both profiting off the organ trade connected to the transferal of these Russian mental patients via Vladivostok to Wiltshire and slaughtered in the butcher's shop. So it's all very interesting. Indeed, Russian intelligence are disposing of mental patients that they've utilized for extrasensory perception and paranormal phenomenon experiments, indeed, letting them out back into the Russian community would basically be suicide for the Russian intelligence services to have all of these paranormal psychiatric patients running around the country exposing stuff, so they dispose of them via the Wiltshire butchers shops and then profit from the organ trade of these paranormal inclined psychiatric patients. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, I've explained that the Russian intelligence services are far more advanced in terms of parapsychology than the British or the Americans, which is all very interesting. As I've stated, although everything is factional, and there are cliques, and there are detentists, there are genuine conflicts going on and occurring between Britain and the Russian Federation. And I seem to have got myself very much caught up in that. Indeed, defense intelligence and the Defense Industrial Security Command, operating out of Warminster military base, are still trying to cast me as a Russian agent. However, my videos are beginning to prove to people that I do not work for the Russian state at all, that I am simply just a paranormal psychotic mental patient. Indeed, I myself am connected with certain extrasensory phenomena. Indeed, I have a guardian angel in my head, Catty, my feline ex-girlfriend who was killed by the Grenville Lodge Freemasons. It is interesting that Grenville Lodge are operating their own networks of psychics and extraterrestrial programmed schizophrenics to attempt to basically put me off course. However, they're having trouble because the extraterrestrial programmed schizophrenics are sympathetic to me. They are reading my mind and realizing that we are very similar. Therefore, it's very interesting indeed. A lot of the extraterrestrial phenomenon had to do with basically deformed people being used for experimentation. Indeed, a lot of these deformities were being created on purpose by Nazi scientists within the Soviet Union intelligence structure. So it's interesting to consider a lot of these so-called aliens were physically deformed on purpose human beings who are being utilized by the Soviet intelligence services to attempt to scare Western populations. And this is what I'm worried about being used in an agenda myself regarding, because the revelations about the police could cause chaos in Wiltshire that could suit the agenda of Soviet intelligence. So I might have to scale down my exposures of Devizes Police for a while, despite the destruction of Devizes Police being one of my sole, well, not sole, I've got many agendas, one of my main agendas. However, I'm going to have to move on to other topics for a while. Indeed, certain videos of mine are beginning to leak to the Warminster population, which could be interesting, considering I'm seeking felines. Indeed, the Soviet intelligence services are attempting to construct a barrier between me and the Warminster felines. So it's all very interesting indeed. Soviet intelligence are paranoid of me because they know I will not work for them, no matter what they offer me. Indeed, it's all very interesting to notice that at certain times I have spun out into a Russian military intelligence GRU psychosis. However, this is because I'm being beamed at by British sources, i.e. networks of gang stalkers connected to Samuel Buchan, attempting to cast me as a Russian agent. And I'm also being telepathically hypnotized by Russian psychics operating out of Kremlin's Vault system. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, my brain is being hacked by both sides of an ongoing hybrid war. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, I'm not prepared to take a side. I'm only loyal to my felines. So it's all very interesting to consider this. I am solely loyal to my felines. Indeed, a lot of the British mental patients I've encountered are seriously uninspiring people because of misdiagnosis. These guys aren't actually psychotic, not in the way I am. As people, they're beginning to seriously disappoint me. However, I have faith in Anglo-American schizophrenics. They're much more interesting than British schizophrenics. So it's interesting to consider that. But as I stated, I'm truly loyal to my felines. Indeed, it's interesting how all of this interlinks with the overarching Soviet agenda and what the actual intentions of the Soviet intelligence services are. They are the erection of a Marxist-Leninist police state with Nazi Trudovic exterior forms, basically. It's a hybrid movement. This is based on Dugin's philosophy interconnected with National Bolshevism, which itself is heavily interconnected with Green Party politics and various views of the national anarchist movement regarding Strasserism. So it's very interesting how this interconnects. Indeed, Troy Southgate is a Nazi, just via different continuums from the Hitler guys. It's all very interesting to consider that Troy Southgate is very heavily interconnected with various Satanist networks, such as 764. Despite 764 being more on the Hitler continuum of National Socialist thought, these networks are all interconnecting. So it's interesting to consider. Indeed, the Green Party are coordinated by the Soviet Union, interestingly. It's interesting considering the Green Party contains various networks of Nazi hippies who are operative for the erection of a police state. So it's all very interesting how all of these networks are interconnecting, and we can basically talk about the Soviet agenda as a different strand of Illuminism competing with the Bavarian tradition. So it's all very interesting to consider. Indeed, I'm going to leave it there.